So what is the issue about governance? Actually, why governance? Be it whatever the forms of governance that we are talking about. The question is actually the question of trust. How to trust autonomous intelligent systems? We see them very capable of doing a lot of things, but we need to trust them. If we don't trust them, we will not be able to use them. We will not be able to use them in critical situations and in everyday situations because we don't know what they are going to yield. So this is a question of dependability, exactly like you depend on various technologies. We must define a framework for dependable autonomous and intelligent systems, so-called AI in general, but it's beyond what is actually just AI. So there are a few features that I'll get back to define this trust, this dependability. And in 2016, 2 years ago, actually exactly in April, we started within the IEEE with Konstantinos this global initiative on ethics of autonomous and intelligent systems, which is global, as IEEE is, multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder, with the mission to ensure that every stakeholder involved in the design, development, and use of those systems is educated, trained, empowered, actually, to prioritize ethical considerations so that these technologies are indeed advanced for the benefit of humanity. Now, to date, within this initiative, we have about 1,000 members. We started with a few tens of members. So the purpose, the objective that we set forward are to identify issues. What are the issues that are raised by development of those technologies and propose recommendations for addressing them, including policy recommendations, policy to companies, to also governments and organizations. We provided a glossary. Ambassador Amandip was kind enough to mention this, a glossary of about 100 pages, which is indeed organized in a way that it makes words understandable by different stakeholders. We work on standards, and we are working on educational programs with major universities. So the glossary, for example, indeed defines a given term in ordinary language, in computational disciplines, in engineering, for government, policy, and social sciences, and in ethics and philosophy, because it has different acceptations. And this is open. You can contribute. The website of the initiative is accessible, and we need input, actually, to make things clearer, inclusive, to reflect the diversity of views. The foundational principles, the pillars on which the initiative is based, are the following. Human rights. The first principle is human rights. The second principle is well-being, prioritizing well-being. Those technologies must prioritize well-being. Third principle, accountability. The accountability is the accountability of the designers, of the developers, of the operators, so that those systems actually, and the human behind them, can be held accountable, mostly. Transparency, ensure that they operate in a transparent manner, and limit misuse. Jan mentioned this issue that it's quite easy to misuse such system, so how can we limit the risk, minimize the risks of misuse? This is a very difficult topic. What are the features to input in those systems to really comply with this? Well, actually, they are not really completely new, but they take a different flavor in this. I'm going to list some of them. Privacy, it's related also to human rights. This was mentioned earlier. Transparency, accountability, explicability, intelligibility, you want to understand what the system is doing. Auditability, system has functioned in a given way, you want to know why and after the fact. validation and certification mechanisms, ethics by design, actually. And what's interesting is that you see that those features are percolating. You can find some of them, for example, in the French plan for AI, which was published late March by the Villani report, it's called, and the President Macron has presented this. And there is a section on ethics. You find these issues. You find similar issues, for example, features in a Microsoft document. So you see that companies, big stakeholders, and countries are adopting, reflecting on how to adopt those features. So the production of the initiative is a document. It's called Ethically Aligned Design. It's about 260 pages, freely available and reusable on the internet, that identifies key issues and provides recommendations. And it's divided into 13 sections. For example, one of them is about the general principle. One of them is, well, reframing autonomous weapons system. One is about legal issues. One is about policy, effective computing, etc. And as I said, standards is really important. So governance is indeed regulations, but empowering industry stakeholders to actually embed ethics in their systems is important. And this might be done efficiently by defining industrial standards that they can adopt. And we are in the process within the Standard Association in the process of building 13 standards, more to come. And building an industrial standards takes time. It takes 2-3 years. So we have to move fast because technology is moving fast. One standard, for example, is about this model process for ethical design. One is about transparency of autonomous systems. One is about algorithmic bias, and this is core when you speak about data. One is about fail-safe design of autonomous systems, so that trust is embedded indeed, and so on.